Greetings, Westmarch Prime Ministers. This is Lady Raven Lunatic, and I would like to present an outline and tips for preparing a successful land audit. I'm including experience reviewing audits over 3 years of being a Westmarch Board of Directors member. Additionally, I will include citations from the most current version of the Corpora, version 1.15, as of December 2019. Article 9, Sponsored Chapters, says that the Kingdom may audit any sponsored chapter at any time to ensure the smooth operation of the sponsored chapter. And also the Kingdom BOD shall conduct regular audits of all lands every 6 months. Audit periods cover January 1 through June 30th and July 1 through December 31st. Audit packages are submitted through the Westmarch Prime Minister and are due no later than August 1st at midnight Pacific Standard Time and February 1st at midnight Pacific Standard Time, respectively, which means that you have 1 month to organize and submit your audit package. Of note is that if your audit is not submitted by the date set forth by the Westmarch BOD, it automatically receives a fail. You should, of course, be collecting and scanning throughout the 6-month term, which prevents last-minute scrambling to find missing items. Article 9, Sponsored Chapters, is the section of the Corpora that describes the requirements for land levels and what their audit requirements are. On caamtguard.com, under the section of Important Documents, you will find not only a copy of the Corpora, but you will also find a link to the audit package for your land level. The audit packages contain a title page, table of contents and instructions, a letter to the BOD, an audit summary, past and current officers, dues paid members, Crown qualifications for arts and sciences and War Master, a financial ledger, and attendance summary. You also will need to submit advertising or evidence of recruiting and attendance sheet, which is an addendum to the audit package. Again, the first page here is the title page. Please make sure to put your name and your contact information at the bottom so that if the BOD has any questions, they know who you are and who to contact. The second page lists the table of contents of the audit package and some basic instructions. There are also some comments in the margins of the audit package that provide useful information and sometimes can be a little entertaining. Hopefully make you smile a little bit as you go through this process, because it can be a little bit tedious and stressful for some. On the next page is a letter to the Board of Directors. This letter isn't required, but it's a good place to talk about the accomplishments of your land, explain any discrepancies, if you have any discrepancies in your ledger or your attendance sheets, quals, results. You can explain why your park was dark on a certain day. You can describe the recruitment efforts in your advertising. And it's a good idea to give your board of directors a general idea about the status of your land. Don't leave it blank. It really is a good thing to provide, even though it's not required. And we do look at it and read it. At the top of the next page is the audit summary, and this is going to be specific for your level. The Shire level is the level that has requirements. The required items are the little stars, and only if you have, for example, a bank account, you include that, but that's not required. There are basic common requirements for all lands, and we're going to use the Shire as an example to begin with, and then later on we are going to go and explain the additional requirements for the barony, duchy, and principality levels. So here for a Shire level, you see that it's required. You need copies of attendance sheets, copies of your financial records, proof of advertising, copies of ledgers, that's written copies of your ledgers, and you must meet the attendance requirements for a shire. All chapters must provide the following requirements. Need copies of attendance sheets for the last 6 months. Examples of recruitment or proof of advertising, which we'll review later. Copies of financial records and a ledger for the past 6 months, and you must meet attendance requirements. For the attendance summary portion of the audit, you need scans of the sign-in sheets. It's very helpful if you put them in chronological order. It's also very important if you did not meet on a scheduled day that you put a placeholder in with the date and the reason. For example, if your land didn't meet because you went to FOM or Dark Shore, if it was canceled for weather, that can be another important reason, or more recently, smoke and air quality. If you don't hold park day because of weather or the air quality, it's not required, but it's a good idea to include a screenshot of the weather for that day or the air quality for that day, just to support why you're claiming that you didn't have park day for that reason. Below is a link of calculation for uniques. You can click on these links and it will help you determine your number of uniques. That's important for meeting your attendance requirements, which we'll go over in a couple slides. Also remember that the frequency of meeting for shires is to meet every other week. The other parks or levels, baronies, duchies, and principalities need to meet every week. But every other week means every other week. It doesn't mean that you can miss 2 weeks in a row. And there have been instances where a shire doesn't meet every other week. They've missed 2 weeks in a row, and that's been a point of discussion. Sign-in sheets. Sign-in sheets must include the park and the date. There are some things that you must consider for your sign-in sheets. You need to have people sign in for themselves. There are some exceptions. If an adult signing for a child, someone who can't sign their own name, for example. There have also been instances where somebody's been home cooking or doing something, supporting an event, and the monarch needs to sign in for them. You really need to not have another member sign in for them. It really should be the monarch. Also, there's been some instances where signatures look like the same person has signed for several people, and those signatures, if they look similar, will be scrutinized. So this slide shows a table of the attendance requirements for the different levels. A shire, again, meets every other week and needs an average of 5 monthly uniques. And again, you can use the link on the previous page for calculating your uniques. And it must also have at least the monarch and prime minister positions filled. Barony, duchy, and principality meet once a week and have 20, 40, and 60 average monthly uniques respectively. And you can see in the right-hand column that they have an increasing number of minimum office requirements that need to be filled for their level. Here's an example of some advertising. Advertising and recruiting have been a big area of discussion. Examples of advertising can include flyers, cards, pictures of people actually working at a demo. It's nice if you can display or present your advertising that you are actually advertising and that you're actually making an active effort to promote and recruit new members rather than just a picture of a flyer. An example would be that you have a flyer, but you've actually posted it on a bulletin board, say at a Starbucks or a game shop or something like that, and you take a picture of the flyer actually being displayed in some place rather than just a photograph of the flyer. The next component for all lands is a financial ledger. The ledger needs to be entered and written in the audit form, as well as a scan of your land's handwritten ledger. The Prime Minister should be keeping a written ledger of the land balance, including dues and expenses. We do look for individual members' dues being entered in the ledger, and we will compare that against the dues paid members in the audit form for the barony and the duchy level parks. You can submit copies of receipts, but they're not required. And if you do have a bank account for your land, you will need to provide scans of your bank account statements. So that is the basic minimum requirements for all of the lands. And additionally, the barony and duchy have some other requirements. So in addition to copies of attendance sheets, copies of financial records, proof of advertising, and meeting attendance requirements and the ledgers, baronies and duchies also need to have a list of current officers. They also need to have results of Crown qualifications. They also need to have results of Crown elections, and they also need to provide a list of current dues paid members. And again, this is just a summary of the additional requirements for the duchy and barony level lands. I have not included the principality for this presentation because currently in California and Westmarch we don't have any principalities. This will be amended if we do have principalities, and I'll include them. So here is the page in the audit form, again, that shows the audit summary for barony level. For a barony and a duchy, you need to also have past and current officers. So the monarch and the results of the voting for the previous reign and the current reign. If they did not qualify, you can write them in as pro tem, but they do need to be entered in here, and you do need to meet the minimum requirements for the officer positions for your land level. And then you can see below on the same page is where you write in your dues paid members. Crown qualification results. Again, the barony and duchy level lands must hold quals. Even if no one enters, you have to show that you held quals. So if no one entered, obviously you might not have any results here, but you need to indicate that, and you need to indicate that you offered it, but no one entered. If, of course, you did have people entered, you would note the items for the arts and sciences and the categories and the scores, and the first, second, and third place champions for the arts and sciences, and then for your fighting tournament, the players and the results and their scores. So how do we determine the excellent, pass, or fail rating? If you submit everything on time, everything's complete, and all required items are submitted, you'll receive an excellent rating. If one required item is missing, then the land will get a pass. If more than one required item is missing, a fail is assigned. Lands receiving 2 excellent ratings in a row go up for discussion for promotion of land level if the attendance meets the higher requirement of the next level up. And I believe it is also up for approval of the land on whether they want to be promoted or not. If a land receives 2 consecutive fails, there's an automatic Westmarch Audit vote for consideration of demoting. Again, for attendance, all groups must maintain a minimum attendance of 75%, the requirement needed to become their current land size. So even if you submit all of the required material, if your land hasn't met the 75% of the average monthly uniques required for that land level, then that's considered a fail on that particular area of the audit. So before you submit your audit, double check, make sure you put your name and contact information on the front page. try to come up with something to put on the letter for the BOD. Try not to wait until the last minute to submit your audit. If you submit it early and we review it, then we can give you the chance to make corrections potentially. Make sure that you have some example of active recruiting or advertising. Make sure that you put a placeholder for your dark park days and put your attendance scans in chronological order if you can. If you have dark park days, again, try to submit a weather scan or an air quality scan or some reason for why you didn't meet on that day. Baronies and duchies must hold quals even if no one enters. Every other week for shires, it means every other week. Lands must have all required monarchy positions filled. Individual dues must be noted in the ledger, and the ledger must be legible. And the dues paid members for baronies and duchies must be listed in the audit. And another thing too is try to make sure your officers are all dues paid, okay? So again, in conclusion, this has been a review of the corpora requirements, a walk through the audit form, and a compilation of reasons why audits have fallen below excellent for previous audits. Please, if you have any questions, reach out to your Kingdom Prime Minister, your Kingdom board members, or me, Raven Lunatic, if you need more information or guidance. I hope this has helped your confidence and ability to create an excellent audit package for your land. I wish your land healthy fighting and a successful audit.